Hi, I'm Shanti, the artist behind Shanti Fine Arts. In today's tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how I painted this beautiful yet easy Buddha face painting with oil pastels. I'm working with Mungyo oil pastels on the reverse side of Mi-Tientes paper, and all the materials are listed below in the video description, so check that out. And if you're not comfortable drawing the face, then I will also have a link available again in the video description below for the traceable for you to draw it out. So let's get started.
As usual, I'm starting off with the background, but this time I did something different. I had the paper flipped inside out or upside down or whatever you want to call it. I just used the reverse side of the paper than what I would usually use. I'm working on a toned paper, and this is Mi-Tientes paper, and usually people tend to use the smoother side of the paper for pastels or oil pastels and color pencils, but I chose to use the little more textured side because I was going for a background with a lot of texture. I did not want a very finished, smooth look in the background. So I thought, why not take the advantage of the already existing texture on the backside of the paper and see how it goes. So this was kind of an experiment that became a happy, ended in a very happy ending, and it worked out. I got the texture that I wanted. And even when I was doing the face and I wanted a very smooth face, a transition or kind of like skin tones, realistic skin tone like looking smoothness, I got that too by layering. So using the back side of the paper really worked in this case. So you can give it a try, or you can just use the usual side of the paper, and that would be fine too. So you can see that I am using currently different shades of yellow that I have in my 24 pastel set of the Mungyo oil pastels, and some of the crimsons and oranges, and you will see that later I will pull in some browns as well in the background. And I am not being careful at all in which direction my pastel strokes are going, where I'm putting what color, and whether they're blending or not, because like I said, I want a textured, rough looking background for this particular Buddha face. I just wanted to experiment with a rough looking background, and every layer that I laid down, after that you can see me, I'm using a cotton rag wrapped around my finger to blend it. That way my finger remains clean, and I can just switch on the different areas of the cotton rag to get a clean area. So I really like using cotton rags for blending instead of any other blending tools, if I'm using blending tools instead of using mineral spirits for blending. So there it goes. So next I'm starting to work on the face of the painting, which is the main part of the painting, and you can see that I am first laying down the darker areas, the shadow areas first, and I started with the ear because I'm working from left to right of the painting, which I generally tend to do for especially oil pastels on oil paintings, which can smear with if my hand touches the area. So if I go from left to right, then there is less chances of the smearing happening. But that is not any rule or anything. That is something I tend to follow, try to tend to follow as much as possible, just for my own convenience. It's a tip that you may or may not find useful. So something up to you to do. Anyways, you can see that I'm continuing to block in the hair and the different parts of the face, starting with the darker areas first. This is a technique that I use for oil paintings, acrylic paintings, oil pastels, everything other than watercolors, that I try to lay down the darker shades first. Sometimes I go with the darkest areas, and sometimes I go with the midtones. In this case, I tried to put in the darkest areas first. That kind of gives you a very good understanding of the values, like how dark you are going to go what is the darkest that you're going to go, and based on that you can add in the midtones and highlights. Now I'm coming back with highlights. In the hair area, excuse me, I'm using various shades of oranges, blue, gray, and purple. And with all those shades, I'm trying to establish a mid-tone area, and I'm not being very particular about what color exactly in what area, just want the impression of the face. This is kind of this face I have put in a little bit of my imagination while I was drawing from a sculpture of Buddha. So like in sculptures, they have like these ridges that kind of make the impression of the hair. So I wanted that to happen, and then I wanted the playing of light and shadows to give that impression of the hair and the ridges in the hair. Now I'm coming back with my white pastel and creating some of the bright highlights in the hair area. And like I said, the colors really do not matter so much, what color I'm putting in what area. It is the values that really matters, kind of the darks and lights, the gradual transition, if you can get that right. If you do not use the right colors, it will not matter. For the shadows of the face, I am using blues, purple, and greens for the darker areas, and greens are mostly used in the transition area from the dark to light, and then after the green I'm using the yellow ochre, and then from yellow ochre I'm slowly going towards the grays and whites, or the highlight areas rather. So you can see that some of the lighter areas I will also use a very light blue and gray, but in general the darker areas are browns, blues, purples, midtones are green and yellow ochre, and the lighter areas are a very light gray mixed with a lot of white, or yellow mixed with white, or just straight up white in some of the bright highlight areas. So that is the general idea of how I chose the dark and light colors. But like I said, you do not have to stick to the colors in this case. You can change the colors a little bit. Instead of using the greens, you can use just different shades of yellow, or different shades of brown, or browns and reds and yellows, or yellows and oranges, or whatever, and just create the value transition, the darks and lights. Where it appears the darkest, use the dark colors of the shades and that you're using, and wherever it is the lighter areas, midtones and highlights, use the lighter shades. And you can create monochromes with that, monochromatic color palettes. You can use a different color palette like I suggested earlier. So once again, I'm mentioning again and again and reiterating, the colors that I'm using are not really important. What is important is to create the gradual transition of lights and darks, and that is almost always makes a painting look amazing. So I'm now working with the white, straight up white, and with that white I'm doing a lot of the blending, and whatever is not getting blended with the white, I'm using my cloth wrapped around my finger to blend it out. Again, playing with the darks and lights. Whatever area I want the dark, I'm using various darker colors. The areas that I want light, I want using lighter colors mixed with white a lot of time. And if some area gets a little bit darker than what you want it to be eventually, you can always add lighter tones of yellows and blues and gray, or even white to lighten those areas up. That is something great about oil pastels, just like in oil paintings or acrylics, that even if you get an area a little darker than what you want it to be, it is not very difficult to change that, unlike watercolors where lightening the colors might be a little bit difficult. Although there are techniques that you can apply in watercolors as well to do the same, but it's a little bit difficult than oil pastels or oil paintings or acrylics for that matter. And oil pastels, once again, do not have the long drying time of oil paintings, so that is an advantage in case of oil pastels. So I'm still continuing on with the lights and darks and playing with it. So the areas that are closer to the viewer's eyes, the ridge of the nose and cheekbones, those are getting the brighter highlights, and the crevices, the eyelids, the area of the eyelid in between, area of the beside the eyes, in between the brow bone and the eyelids, those crevice areas are where I'm putting the darks. Just like you see in a face, the lights and darks, the areas that protrude forward get the more light, and the areas that are receded backwards get less light. That almost always is the law when painting portrait kind of paintings. This I consider as a portrait only. It's just that it's a portrait of a sculpture instead of a real face, although it's kind of similar to a real face as far as proportions goes. Just probably a little bit an artistic look of a face, a stylized face, you can say. Once again, playing with darks and lights. And you will see that when I'm working in the areas or in the lip and the eyes, there are a lot of tiny detailed areas, like lots of single lines that I needed to paint with dark colors. And I just used the edge of the pastel to do the single lines or the details. And if I got it a little bit smeared, that is not a big problem. I can always cover it up with the lighter colors and then come back with the darker colors and get it perfected. If it doesn't happen at one time, try it a few times. And like I said, all the materials that I've used along with links are posted in the video description below, so check that out. And obviously all my social media links are also posted below in the video description, so if you're interested in following me on other social media platforms, there are the resources. And as usual, I would recommend you to subscribe if you are not already subscribed, because I post 2 videos every single week related to art, different kinds of medium, and I don't want you to miss out. So subscribe and always hit the bell so that you get a notification every time I post a new video, which is typically on Wednesdays and Friday EST hours. Some of the finishing tones of lights and darks and fine details. Fine details with oil pastels, some people find it really tricky, so I will come up very soon in future with a video dedicated how to get fine details. But you can see that in this particular painting, all I'm doing is using the edges of the painting, and then if I'm smearing it too much, coming back with lighter tones and polishing it up and refining the details. That is how I'm getting the fine details, lights, darks, values, and everything. Adding some last bit of highlights, darks, and lights. Some of the really dark areas darkening, the lighter areas lightening. That kind of gives the last kind of pop in the entire painting. With that, I'm almost coming to the end of the painting. If you like the video, do not forget to give me a thumbs up, and do share your thoughts in my comments. And if there is any particular kind of video or drawing or painting you would like me to do let me know in the comments as well. I would try to do everything that would be helpful for you guys. And thank you for watching. Once again, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell as well.